Okay, before I get into the horror and stuff, I just wanted to say really quick, thank you so much for this support. The fact that while working basically full-time, I could still make something that gets this kind of positive reaction feels very rewarding. All of you mean so much to me. So you might be thinking, October was last month. Why are you choosing now to cover a spooky game? And I'd say, this isn't a Halloween game. Silent Hill is a autumnal game. While I love horror and plan to talk about pieces of the genre that mean a lot to me in the future, I don't actually have that much experience with horror games. A few months ago when I was writing out my list of video ideas, I tried to schedule them according to what I thought the workload would be like and didn't really consider what month they'd come out. That left me with the fighting game video coming out in October and no real time for a spooky bonus. I knew for sure I wanted to cover Silent Hill during one of my many drives to work. Getting to see the literal ocean whenever I make my commute is definitely its own benefit, but it also means when the weather is just right, you'll get some dummy thick fog. It is kind of a bummer to see this weather just because it's like a big blanket. It makes me want to curl up on the couch with my dog. I also knew I wanted to discuss Silent Hill because while I've always appreciated the series aesthetically, I've watched it being played, I've watched the movies, I've never actually played it myself. So what better time than now to actually experience this haunted ass town? Also, I am gonna spoil parts of this game. Yeah, I know it's 23 years old, but as someone who played it for the first time this year, there were story elements and smaller moments that I didn't know about. So, heads up. For those unfamiliar who decide to stay around, allow me to give you some context. Silent Hill is about Harry Mason, a man taking his 7-year-old daughter to a small town expecting a nice vacation. After nearly hitting someone in the road and getting separated from his daughter, spooky things ensue. I did try Silent Hill like a year ago, but fell off of it because I was doing other stuff, but also because I wasn't totally getting along with it. I am only 2 years older than this game, and in my admittedly limited experience with games from the PS1 era, I find that I usually have to take a moment to get used to them before I can actually enjoy them. This isn't because of my age, by the ways. I knew plenty of people growing up who had things like a PS2 or a PS1, just no one who I spent a significant amount of time with. I wouldn't get my own home console until the Nintendo Wii because my parents didn't care for video games, and at the very least, my sister and I would be up and moving if we played the Nintendo. I'm only specifying this because I used to work at Target, and I tried to sell a guy a copy of Mario 3D All-Stars, and he tried to gatekeep the GameCube from me. Yeah, dude, I've played a GameCube. They didn't stop existing after you turned 30. Fucking get over yourself. I noticed the awkwardness I had with these games when I first played Devil May Cry in preparation of DMC5's release. I found much of DMC to be weird and frustrating. It doesn't control like I think it should. The levels don't flow like I think they should. The fixed cameras make the bombastic combat and traversal kinda ass in all honesty, especially in contrast to later installments. That being said, I've beaten the game 2 more times since then. I love DMC1 and will probably end up beating it again making this video. Now I know all its little quirks. Now I can do things faster than the last time I played it. I'm having that second, third playthrough experience with Silent Hill right now. I am using a guide to help me along, partially because I'm bad at puzzles, but also because of that aforementioned lack of experience with this era. Games from this time had a different cadence to them. They expected different things from its players than what I'm used to. This is a space that I have to put myself in. I bounced off Silent Hill originally because I wasn't willing to accept it on its terms. Its controls frustrated me. Moving Harry around feels like I'm driving a car. The amount of aimless wandering the game expected from me seemed unreasonable. They wanted me to just walk up and down the street till I found a fucking doghouse. It seems like they wanted me to try and leave the town from any possible exit just to see that I can't. It took me almost 2 hours to get to the school, and once I was inside, I ran out of bullets trying to gun down every enemy I saw. How Long to Beat says this game is only 7 hours. How did I spend 2 hours just getting to such an early part of the game? So, other things came up. I read all of Jujutsu Kaisen and Chainsaw Man. I moved into my current house. I started doing just other things, but now I am willing to accept Silent Hill. I feel the tension in narrowly escaping monsters in buildings and running past them in the streets. I get that the knife is a complete joke, and I shouldn't even try to kill anything until I get the pipe because normal enemies are just a waste of your bullets. Now that I'm willing to accept Silent Hill, I can love Silent Hill. I love all of this game's monster designs. You get Meat Dog or a pterodactyl or like just a child with a knife that's just gonna like stab the shit out of you. What seems like aimless wandering is actually quite a guided experience. You just have to actually look around for yourself and not rely on yellow painted ledges. This isn't to say this is a better way to make games. I'm also not saying it's worse. It's just different from today. Modern signposting is more clear and accessible for people, but I think Silent Hill's method is more rewarding and appropriate for its setting. The fact that you feel unsure of your direction during the game adds to the general feeling of unwelcomeness. It gives the town more of its own character. It didn't want you here, but now it won't let you leave. The same could be said about the game's puzzles. At first I was getting frustrated with things like the piano at Midwich Elementary. I thought that this sound was saying that I wasn't hitting the right key when it's actually the opposite. But this is actually the best way to design this puzzle. If you made it so that only the right keys played notes, that'd make it too easy. And if you gave the players a full piano, that'd be way too difficult. It's good shit, but I'll get into that in a second. I love how this game sounds. Everyone talks about how great Silent Hill's music is, and with good reason, but the Foley work. Let me tell you about the Foley work. Like, listen to James' footsteps here. That is some good brain stimulation. I feel those little steppers on the top of my brain. That's not even getting into the game's voice acting. Sure, it's unusual and kind of stiff, but that stiffness adds to the whole uncanniness of the game when paired with its visuals, especially as the game has gotten older.
How do you feel?
Oh, like I've been run over by a truck. But I'm all right, I guess.
Glad to hear it. You from around here? Why don't you tell me what happened?
People usually talk about Silent Hill 2 when talking about this kind of thing because, yeah.
Excuse me,
I'm sorry. I
Oh,
was
it's
just...
okay. I didn't mean to scare you. I'm kind of lost.
Lost?
But it's definitely here in the first game. I think a lot about this era in voice acting because I have a lot of mixed feelings on it. On one hand, I'm happy that some people can do this and make a living off of it. I'm glad that the general standard for voice acting has gone up. But that being said, I watch most of my anime subbed, mainly because I don't want to wait for the dub or I just prefer the Japanese voices. There are dubs that I do prefer. Like, I've been slowly making my way through Trigun, and I've been watching that in English. Although that's easily 90% nostalgia, because when I watch anime that looked like this, it also sounded like these actors. But another anime that I recently watched dubbed and loved was Golden Boy, which again could be argued as nostalgia because it is older, but that wasn't what drew me into it. With Trigun, there's a much more direct connection. Vash the Stampede has the same voice as Ichigo and Lelouch, but Kentaro Oe? Well, he has the same voice as Roger Rogers in Plastic Little, and Fox in Bubblegum Crisis Tokyo 2040. Oh shit, he voiced like 3 characters in New Cutie Honey? Hell yeah. Most of my issues with dubs is I feel like a lot of English VAs kinda sound alike, which is not their fault. I'm not gonna single anyone out because that would be a super shitty thing to do. These are performers who put in a lot of work to get these jobs. It's just more that it seems that there are certain types of voices that are preferred within the industry, the same way that if you look at certain actors, they will have a samey look to them. The reason I love Kentaro so much is because of his English voice. Sure, his delivery would feel out of place in something like Mushishi, but it's not that, it's fucking Golden Boy.
Oh my god, she's not wearing a bra! And my estimated size of 34 inches was off! She's a 35! And she's a C-cup!
I think seeing a piece of media featuring someone you aren't familiar with can add a lot to it. I think of films that use people who aren't traditionally trained actors and what that can bring to the work. Or I think of a film like The Blair Witch Project, in which a big part of its marketing was making it seem real. That's just something that wouldn't work if the movie had recognizable name actors. The Blair Witch Project did this by hiring people from improv groups and tried to get the dialogue and performances as natural as possible. They achieved this by having the performers mainly just riff between each other and having that be the dialogue. The director and writer then took this further by actually fucking with the cast as they made the movie, scaring them as they tried to sleep and things like that. Actress Heather Donahue said this about the production. "They let us know that our safety was their concern, but our comfort was not. We knew it was definitely going to be 24/7. We knew that it was going to be uncomfortable." This is to say, I like the Blair Witch Project because I love the unconventional environment that Heather Donahue, Michael C. Williams, and Joshua Leonard performed in. I love Golden Boy because of how Doug Smith did his performance. He doesn't sound like anyone I'm used to hearing, and the same could be said about Michael Ginn's portrayal of Harry Mason. Michael Ginn only did a few roles here and there, but there are some serious all-timers. I mean, this man played Harry Mason and made us consider what it is to be a man in Symphony of the Night. Fucking killer.
A miserable little pile of secrets. But enough talk. How about you?
It's not just Harry, too. The whole cast sounds very distinct. A majority of the core cast didn't do that much work in voice acting outside Silent Hill. Some people had a few roles here and there, while others only did this game. It makes Silent Hill this time capsule of all these different people trying new things at this one point in time. These performers trying their hand in video games, and this game being the first one made by Team Silent. I can talk about Silent Hill's characters, I can talk about the sounds and the town itself, but let's actually talk about the game. The way I'd wish to do this is by showing you my time in the game and sharing my thoughts in a kind of condensed Let's Play format. So without further ado, allow me to walk you through my trip to Silent Hill. My time in Silent Hill starts the same as anyone else. I wake up as Harry Mason in my car. I see my daughter is gone. I walk into the foggy gray streets till I think I see her. I don't. Instead, I find something else. Something I don't know. Suddenly, two creatures sneak up from behind and attack me. Just a regular start of the day for anyone who's been to Silent Hill. I wake up again, this time in a cafe. This is where we meet Sybil. She's from a neighboring town looking to get in touch with the local law enforcement. She's a cop. Sybil may have brought Harry to this cafe after finding him in the alley. She may have come to this cafe and found him here. It depends who you ask. Harry explains that he's looking for Cheryl, our daughter. Sybil sympathizes and wants to help, so she gives us our first gun. She's noticed for a grand total of 5 minutes and just gives us a loaded weapon. What's up, gamers? Welcome back to Media Divers Top 10 Countdowns. Today we're looking at the top 10 pieces of biting social commentary and Silent Hill 1. But before we get into it, don't forget to obliterate that subscribe button. Biting social commentary in Silent Hill number 10. America loves guns so much, they give you one whenever you walk into a new town. This is my first chance to try and save my progress. Harry writes down something on a little notepad. We'll find more of these throughout the town. I pick up my handy radio. Once I've done that, a actual fucking pterodactyl comes flying in the window. I have no choice but to gun it down. Going forward, I would like to save as many of my bullets as I can. While I only spent a brief weekend in Silent Hill before, I ran out of bullets and completely screwed up my playthrough. I don't have an overly dramatic way to say that, it was just really dumb of me. I love the setup for this scare, by the way. The quick glance of the air screamer before it comes flying in the window, so good. I go back to the alleyway where I thought I last saw my daughter. I don't see her, or what was there before, but I do find a note from Cheryl's sketchbook telling me to go to the school, and a pipe. It could do some damage if you swing it hard enough. Periodically, I would just stop and do a few practice swings with the pipe. I just wanted to get a feel for it, but I like pretending that Harry was hyping himself up for when he saw another monster. It's kind of cute if you imagine it like that. I recommend going to this little convenience store at the north end of Bachman Road. There's another notepad here. I'd never been here before this playthrough, but I really like it. It's out of the way, but safe, cozy. It's my favorite save point in all of Silent Hill 1. Silent Hill is an interesting game because while yes, you can only save your progress at these specific notepads, this game is littered with them. I was worried I was going to have to overextend how much I wanted to play or lose progress, but that was never the case. I went ahead and started looking for 3 keys scattered throughout the town. The guide I'm using recommended doing it now, which, if you're interested, is linked in the description along with a few other things. Once I have collected the Key of Lion, Key of Woodman, and Key of Scarecrow, I go to the end of Matheson Street. And I do mean the end. There are more notes from Cheryl's sketchbook, and blood covering the ground, this time telling us to go to the doghouse. I find the doghouse. There's a house key taped inside of it. I now have 4 keys. I use this most recent addition to my collection to open the door closest to the doghouse. This is my second favorite save point in the game. Go to the back of the house and find a door with 3 locks on it. I use the Key of Lion, Key of Woodman, and Key of Scarecrow to open the door. Now, I can go to Midwich Elementary in the hopes of finding my daughter. I walk up to the school's front office. 3 pieces of paper await me, each telling me a different part of the school I need to go to: the science lab, the music room, and the boiler room. You should go into the teacher's lounge behind the office. There's a pretty metal painting in there. As we walk through the school, I discover strange little creatures known as the Grey Children waiting around to attack me. At this point in my first playthrough a year ago, I discovered the very unexciting best way to navigate through any indoor environment is by walking around with your flashlight off. You do have to turn the flashlight on to unlock doors and look at your map, but if you know where you're going, you're fine. The game will take advantage of this later. I go to the lab equipment room and pick up a bottle of a chemical. I pour the chemical on a hand that's just lying around in the neighboring classroom. It gives me a gold medallion. I put the medallion in the courtyard. I go to the music room, do that puzzle. Again, the piano puzzle is a good one. It gives me a silver medallion. I go into the locker room because there's a weird noise in there, and the guide I use recommended that new players should go there. I find a good surprise. I die. I do the silver medallion puzzle and let the cat out of the locker again. I died a lot in Midwich Elementary. I ended up spending like a total of 3.5 hours across both versions of the school. I say both because once I put the silver medallion in and turned on the generator, I went to the spooky side version of the school. There are a lot more enemies and it's way harder to navigate. I picked up a pink rubber ball, assuming my daughter would like it when I eventually meet up with her again. I guess, I don't know, I think I picked it up before you're supposed to. I just like to pretend that Harry really likes collecting random things he finds on the ground, like the picture card. It turns out that really metal painting was a real place. Cool. I get the shotgun. Biting social commentary in Silent Hill number 9. America loves guns so much that you find them in elementary schools. I turn some valves. I clog some pipes. I restart my key collection. That jump scare in the locker room got me really good. I shoot a lizard in the mouth. I leave the school. Things go back to what has become normal. Midwich Elementary is probably the most iconic area from this game. They made it into a Dead by Daylight map. You get to do so much there. The puzzles are all really great and appropriate for a school setting. It feels like they're using the idea of a spooky school to the best of their ability, and we only leave once they've run out of those ideas. It's a big, labyrinthine area, but I never felt lost. There, at least. As I walk out of the school, I hear distant church bells, my next destination. Once I get there, I'm greeted by the second living human I've seen in Silent Hill, Dahlia Gillespie. She says some weird stuff. She hands me like a weird fucked up Rubik's triangle. I don't know what she's up to. She did say there was some cool stuff going on at the hospital, so I go check that out. I'll be honest, I don't like the hospital as much as I like Midwich Elementary. That's not to say I think it's worse. I just don't enjoy it as much from a pure gameplay standpoint. On the other hand, it is an incredibly important area for story. This is where we meet Dr. Michael Kaufman. I don't like Kaufman. I recommend going into the kitchen of the hospital, take one of the bottles with you, then go into Kaufman's office. There's a strange red liquid on the ground. Put it in the bottle. I do like that in the hospital there are these seemingly random environmental details that could just be cool stuff, but are actually set up for things to come much later in the game. I also think it's really cool when another button appears on the elevator. I don't have any elaborate thoughts, I just really like it. It's a good moment. I find some cool colorful blocks. I go to the sub-basement and find a picture of who looks like Cheryl, but it has Alessa written on it. As I leave, I meet our final human character, Lisa Garland. Lisa is a nurse. She doesn't know what's going on at the hospital or in the town. Lisa is the only character we meet who seems genuinely afraid of what's going on around us. Sybil and Kaufman both just want out. Dahlia seems like she's just along for the ride, but Lisa is unsure. Now that we've met all our side characters, I just want to say I really like them and what they bring to this game. They're only around to be more story. Lisa doesn't give you medkits. You don't team up with Sybil for a bombastic boss fight. You see them, you talk, you go your separate ways. It gives Harry more to work with as a character, but also lets you sit in that lonely atmosphere. Dahlia comes back. She gives us a key to an antique shop. At the antique shop, there's a cabinet. I push it aside. It's covering a hole in the wall. Sybil shows up. Harry fills her in on what's happened. As I go through the hole in the wall, I find some kind of shrine, an axe, and something else. I don't know what else Harry sees because the next thing I know, we're waking up at the hospital talking to Lisa. She tells us about Dahlia. I wake up again. We're in a room that looks like the antique shop, but we're in the other place. I left this building hoping this rusty overworld would be contained to this one space, but it's not. For the first time, we see the outside world like this. It feels like the whole town has been eaten. I go back to the hospital to talk to Lisa because I know where to find her and she grew up here. It may not look like the town she lived in, but the streets still connect the same way, more or less. Actually, as I say that, Simmons Street is no longer passable. We'll have to go through the Silent Hill town center. I go up the escalator. I find another notepad. There's a monster. It appears to be eating something, but I don't know because the walkway gives out below me. Eventually, I land in a sand pit. A worm is crawling out of the ground, spitting at me. The worm dies. I can now get to Lisa. She tells me about an old waterworks I should go to. Leaving the hospital, the roads have changed again. I can only walk to one area, a rooftop where I fight a giant moth. It kills me a few times. I realized I'm actually missing a gun. I could have gotten a rifle, so I load my save back to before the worm fight, go to the worm pit, and picked up the rifle this time. I just totally missed it before. I redo everything I did to get back to the moth and kill it with the rifle. I go into the sewers. I hate the sewers. I go on a little side quest about Kaufman that Harry says was a waste of time at the end of. I don't mind things being a waste of time if they're good. I like it when a character goes on a personal journey that doesn't ultimately add to the end goal of the protagonist. It makes the world you're inhabiting feel more fleshed out. I catch up with Sybil on a boat. Dahlia shows up and tells us to go to the lighthouse. Sybil and I go our separate ways again. I'm beginning to think Dahlia is up to something. At the lighthouse, I see what I can only assume is my daughter. I don't know for sure. I think the fact that I'm playing this on a Swedish version of the game means that some stuff isn't working. It takes me a while, but I leave the lighthouse. Oh goody, fucking sewers again. Now, I'm at a fair? There's a notepad at the popcorn booth. I save. Just beyond that, a merry-go-round. The merry-go-round is the only one of the 3 rides you can actually get on. When I do, I'm reunited with Sybil. At least what Sybil was. This brings us into what I believe to be the hardest boss fight in the game, a seemingly possessed version of our cop friend. This fight isn't hard in the traditional video game sense. She doesn't have difficult patterns you have to learn. She doesn't do insane amounts of damage. She just makes you burn through your resources. It takes a lot of bullets to put her down, and she does enough damage to make you heal, but not enough to kill you in one hit. The best thing to do in this fight is just circle strafe around her. She probably won't be able to shoot you, and once she runs out of bullets, she can't reload, so she only has her melee options, while you have your gun, the gun she gave you. It might take a while, but eventually, Sybil will die. Now remember the red liquid we collected at the hospital? Well, you can use that in this fight to save Sybil, so she doesn't actually die at the end of it. I tried. It wouldn't let me. Again, Swedish game, things act strange. So I had to kill Sybil. I wasn't given any other options. I wanted to save Sybil. I couldn't. After this fight, I run into Alessa and Dahlia. Discovered that Alessa was Dahlia's daughter. Dahlia is in fact up to some spooky shit. Again, I wake up in what looks like the hospital, again talking to Lisa, but this time she gets upset with me and leaves. I am now in the last area of the game. the ultimate version of this new twisted form that we have seen the quaint town of Silent Hill become. My least favorite area in the game, Nowhere. I don't dislike Nowhere because of its puzzles. Those are all good. I don't dislike Nowhere because it's 100% reuse of earlier areas. I don't care about that. I only mention it because it is there. I think it's used in an interesting way, mostly. What I don't like is what areas they reuse. It's mainly just the hospital. Nowhere is using impossible space. You will go through a door and it will connect to a different area than should fit behind that door. I was getting constantly lost because almost everything looks the same. I would love it if you opened up one door in the hospital and it ended up in the school. Then it went to the lighthouse, and then at the top of the lighthouse, you would end up on Simmons Street, and that could loop you back to the hospital. I just need some kind of visual difference. The fact that everything looks the same wouldn't be as big a deal if you got a map, but there isn't one because I can never find it. Nowhere has my least favorite save point. I understand that it would be hard to make a map of an area using impossible space, or that they wanted the players to feel lost, but I didn't feel lost in Nowhere. I felt sick. And not in a cool, you're playing a horror game way. Like, it just made me want to stop playing. Like, I got a pretty severe headache and did stop playing at several points in Nowhere. It made me feel like I couldn't appreciate things like the puzzles. Puzzles utilizing the before random objects around the hospital. I couldn't appreciate our final scene with Lisa. I find her in one of the rooms of Nowhere. She's begging for her help, but she's not on the ledge. She's already fallen off, which leads to what I think is genuinely one of the most haunting scenes in any game.
Lisa?
Her music lingers with us after she's died. You should go back to the room she was just in. You'll find a journal. Read it. I'm not going to tell you what's in it. That journal is Lisa's life. It's not for me to expose to you. I know when I'm done with Nowhere because I've collected its 5 key items: the Disc of Ouroboros, the Crest of Mercury, the Amulet of Solomon, the Ankh, and the Dagger of Melchior. I go into Alyssa's room. I use this final key collection to unlock the other door in there. I save. It's time for the final encounter of the game. I walk a little bit. I see a few cutscenes with Dahlia and Alessa. Then the fight begins against the Incubus. The Incubus is just a nightmare of a thing. It floats above me at all times and is striking me with red lightning. You can avoid the lightning if you time your movements right. I couldn't, though. This becomes a problem for me. While I had enough bullets, I had ammo to spare, really, I wasn't keeping a good enough watch on my health items. So here I am at the final encounter, and I only had one health drink, the weakest item there is, and I only had the one. It's hard enough for an experienced player to do a no damage run against an Incubus, let alone someone who's fighting it for the first time. I tried to fire off as many bullets as I could in between lightning bolts, but it didn't work. I tried circle strafing like I did with Sybil. It didn't work. I tried to make my movements more sporadic, but this also did not work. I tried and tried and tried, but no matter what I did, by the time I undoubtedly got hit by lightning that second time, I was dead. I became desperate. I loaded my save back into Nowhere to see if there were any health items I missed. There weren't. I started looking everywhere online to see what people were doing to beat this boss. I found out about a glitch, the no ammo trick, in which you go into the final boss encounter with no ammo. The Incubus would just die because there's no way for you to actually hit it with melee. So I loaded my save back to Alyssa's bedroom to get rid of all of my ammo. Unfortunately, you can't just drop ammo in this game, so I had to manually unload every round I had, which became its own problem because while I was trying to be a diligent survival horror game player and save as much of this resource as I could, I'll admit, when I was in nowhere, I did get quite frustrated and ended up burning most of my shotgun and rifle ammo, only having 1 and 6 rounds respectively. I felt okay with doing that because at the time, I knew I still had my handgun ammo, all 211 rounds of it. So I stood there in this child's bedroom unloading a cowboy hat wearing family gathering amount of ammo until I eventually had none left. Did you know, if you roll your thumb over the button like this, you can actually input faster than mashing? Shout out to this video on competitive Tetris to make me try this. After almost exactly 3 minutes, I was done with my handgun. The rifle and the shotgun were much quicker. I walk into the room with the incubus, exhausted and ready to leave Silent Hill, and the no ammo trick doesn't work. Again, something I don't think that works on Swedish versions of the game. I'm now left with no options. Thought about moving on to Silent Hill 2 and trying to cover that. Maybe I can work in some kind of meta-narrative about how this non-ending of Harry's story was the way my Silent Hill story ends. This was a shitty idea. Over a year ago, I tried and failed to complete Silent Hill. I can't not finish it again. Not when I've come so close, but I can't do it like this, obviously. I've tried so many times, and this setup is literally impossible for me. I said I had no options earlier. What I really meant is I had no other options. The only thing I can do in this scenario, if I were to actually finally finish Silent Hill, is to go back to the very start of the game and do it all over again.
Where am I? Have I been here before?
I want to lay down some ground rules for this playthrough and this section. This is not going to be part 2 again, because I already did that, and because the second playthrough wasn't like my first. When all was said and done, that last playthrough took around 12 hours and 40 minutes. This was a genuine attempt for me to try and soak in the game's story, the game's atmosphere, and actually try to complete the puzzles myself. The second playthrough was going to be me beating the game in one sitting. I didn't know how long that sitting was going to be, but I was going to be doing it. I will be skipping every cutscene to try and save time. I also wanted to try and recreate my last playthrough just faster. If I didn't do something in the last one, I will not do it here. So with that established, let's try to speedrun Silent Hill. Okay, game starts. I look for Cheryl. I go to the cafe. I make sure to go to the gas station, not just because it's my favorite save point, but because it has several health items. I start my key collecting again. I'm through my second favorite save point, the doghouse, and at the school in 29 minutes. That's almost exactly an hour off my last playthrough. I ran through Midwich Elementary in under an hour. It takes me about 14 minutes to get to the hospital. I made sure to get the bottle and put the red goo in it. I did run into an issue in this area. On a few different occasions, I would get ahead of myself and start doing things out of order. Hopefully that won't become a problem later. 1 hour has passed since I entered the hospital, and now I'm walking out of it. It takes me 8 minutes to get the antique shop. The worm and the moth are dead 15 minutes after that. Fuck the sewers. I'm done with that little collection of areas and out of the lighthouse in 40 minutes. It takes me 13 minutes to go to Sybil's fair. I beat her on my first try. I didn't even try to save her despite having the items to do so. It's not how my last session went, and it's not how this one will go. I went to the Silent Hill wiki and did what I should have done the first time, and what you should do if you were ever to play Silent Hill and pull up the fan-made map of nowhere. It helps so much. Then here I am, 4 hours and 46 minutes into this one sitting of Silent Hill, and I'm in Alyssa's bedroom. I don't have as many health items as I was hoping for, but it's more than enough to get me through this last fight. I have enough ammo. All I have to do is walk down the stairs and it will all be over. Wait, what the fuck is that? Silent Hill final boss. The Incubus is the final boss in Silent Hill encountered during the good and good plus endings. The Incubator is fought during the bad plus. How the fuck do I get the bad endings? Biting social commentary in Silent Hill number 8. In my rush to finish Silent Hill, I skipped the Kaufman side quest. I forgot, or maybe just didn't know, that this was the main decider on whether or not you get the good or bad ending. Saving Sybil is the other. And considering I couldn't do that, all I remembered was Harry saying it was a waste of time. So now I stand here across from this incubator. I kill her in one go. Credits roll, but I stop recording. I don't even get to the pre-rendered scene of Harry dead in the car, showing that with this version of events, Harry died in the car crash at the start of the game. Because I cut corners, because I thought I knew what I was doing, I'm making this video. By now, this video has gone completely off the rails, which is weird because I wasn't expecting to make it. If you remember, way back at the start, I talked about my schedule and how I didn't release a video on a horror topic in October because the fighting game video happened to fall into that slot. You may have asked, why not just push that video to November and do something simple and spooky for the month relating to this genre that I supposedly love? This is because I wasn't just not expecting to cover Silent Hill right now. I wasn't expecting to release anything in November. That fact made me feel kind of weird about my last video, just because I was putting all this work into something that felt like a big step forward from what I was making. For me to then go radio silent for possibly 2 months. And that's because at the end of November to the middle of December, possibly right now when you're watching this, I'm on vacation in Japan. In fact, I'm probably frantically searching every Onitsuka Tiger so I can find this sweater and tote bag because god damn! I've had this trip scheduled for close to 2 years at this point, and now it's actually happening. I figured between gearing up for this trip and my nearly full-time job, I wouldn't have the time or want to release anything of quality. The reason I blocked out maybe 2 months in my schedule is just knowing how long I'll be away and the time it takes me to actually make these. Sure, I can write anywhere, but I can't edit or record anywhere away from my computer at home. And if I'm right, my next project is going to be a big one. So how did we end up here? Right now, over 6,000 words into Silent Hill. 2 days after I posted my last video, I lost my job. For the second time this year, I am completely unemployed. My job wasn't something I was hoping to do for the rest of my life, but it was something I was happy to do for now. In a selfish way, the worst part of it was I didn't feel like I could really enjoy what success I was having creatively because losing your job is a way bigger deal. I didn't want to talk to anyone or go do anything because eventually the topic of how's work going was going to come up. And there's just not a lot of interesting conversation to be had the second time you lose your job compared to the first. I decided to use my free time in November to make something. I looked at what I wanted to do in the far future and kept coming back to Silent Hill. I was thinking about Silent Hill because Konami was reminding everyone about Silent Hill. This isn't how I wanted to cover this game, but it's what I could do in the time I had. Eventually, I will make that video looking at the series as a whole, but for now, I'll stick with this. I haven't just been by myself and making this video in that time, by the way. I've been walking my dog a lot. I've been staying on top of house chores like doing the laundry and dishes. I've definitely been playing way more Rumbleverse than I should, but I also started watching Serial Experiments Lane for the first time with my girlfriend. I'm watching it English dubbed. I'm only a few episodes in at the time of recording, but I'm really loving it so far. Serial Experiments Lane is another piece of horror from this late 90s era, just like Silent Hill and the Blair Witch Project. All deal with some form of isolation. Whether it be the social isolation that Lane feels from the people around her, or the environmental isolation that Harry and the cast of Blair Witch are going through in their respective stories. I've always loved the idea that Silent Hill isn't actually one town. It's the place you go to when it's your time. Not like in a death way. I don't know. It's where you go when you need it. Why you need it and what you'll get out of it varies from person to person, ideally, but the thing about being in Silent Hill is that you can leave. It'll take work, but you don't have to get stuck here. You don't actually have to be here forever. Silent Hill is not a destination, but a space between. I'm not going to try and beat the Incubus right now. I don't have it in me. I'm also not going to post anything in December. I'll try and have something out at the end of January, because right now, I'm going to enjoy what I do with people I care about. I'm the media diver. Thank you for going on this dive with me, and I hope I'll see you in the next one.